Bees has their long, long claws stuck into us, but they will never, ever, 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 ever be God. Giving the finger to the Wizard of Oz. Now they're trying to go and play God. Stand up and we have to press pause to making babies in pies.
Cat. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. But first, Romania confirms Russian drone debris fell on its territory. So there is obviously any kind of event that happens over NATO territory is going to be paid attention to, and it's also a very big deal. Like the missile that accidentally hit people in Poland, and they, covered that up, whatever they did with that. But now they're saying that debris from a Russian drone fell on NATO country Romania after the Kremlin blitzed a UKR port on the Danube River, Romanian Defense Minister Angel Tilvar said on Wednesday. It says, quote, "We covered a very large area, including an area about where there were discussions in the public space, and I confirmed that pieces were found that could be a drone," said Wednesday, according to local media reports. Russia has been bombarding UKR ports on the banks of the Danube since President Vladimir Putin pulled out of the Black Sea grain deal, with missiles and counter drones frequently landing near Romania. UKR on Monday initially said that Russian debris fell on Romanian territory, which was vigorously denied by Romanian President Klaus Iohannis. So again, and it wasn't denied by Vlad; it was actually denied by it wasn't denied by Vlad; it was denied by Romania. Why did they? Obviously we don't get the truth very often, and who knows if this is even the truth. But it's like every time something like this happens, there's some sort of cover story. Obviously, part of that could be a good thing. With the Poland incident, at first, that was really shady when a missile hit two guys on a tractor, apparently, in Poland. And at the time, we didn't know that their systems target tractors and things. Again, fast forward a little bit, that has actually happened where it thinks it's a tank. I even said that, and then they came out and said, yep, they've accidentally hit tractors. But when that happened, they said, oh, this was Russia. And UKR says, no, I know exactly what we launched, and we didn't launch it. Well, apparently, the UKR president didn't get the memo. They're like, no, wink, wink, it was you. Because essentially, if Russia hit that in Poland, it could have been a world war, right? So a lot of the times, these things are covered up for safety or for, the good of the world, so we don't go to World War III. And they cover it up so we don't have to, say that Article 5 will be invoked. It said last November, NATO held crisis talks after a missile landed in Poland, though U.S. President JB later said that it was unlikely to have been fired from Russia. And remember, then they said it was essentially, it was UKR's missile that was heading to knock out a Russian missile out of the sky, and it went past. And like a day later, Zelensky was like, oh, yeah, it was totally mine. My mistake. And no World War III. And it says, as NATO members, Romania and Poland are protected under Article 5 of the Military Alliance Treaties, which says that an attack on one member will be considered an attack on all members. Now, I also want to point out, Romania has already dug trenches very similar to what we had in World War II. It's very nuts to actually see some of the shots of all of the borders of these countries literally are set up for a world war, for people marching across large fields in battle. Like, this is straight up being set up for a WW3 scenario. So this is pretty crazy. So we'll talk about this and much, much more tonight on Marfoogle TV. Again, stay tuned. It's going to be a shorter show because we didn't think that all of the crazy other filler news was even fit to be on the show. So we really compacted it down to the most important stuff of the day. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough.
Giving the finger to the Wizard of Oz. Now they're trying to go and play God. Stand up and we have to press pause to making babies in pies. No need for alarms. Bees has their long, long claws stuck into us, but they will never, ever be God.
So as you guys know, if you go over to the website, marfooglenews.com, just look for today's thumbnail. You will find a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we have here. Not only that, you'll find a ton of other great stuff in the overflow. We'll talk about that at the very end. Make sure to also go check out all of our mods. They answer questions. If somebody's like, hey, where do I find this one channel I saw here 2 years ago? Again, you can ask mods. Mods have been here for a long time, so a lot of the questions that they answer, again, are very, very useful. So make sure to go check it out, marfooglenews.com/friends, and go subscribe to their channels / their creations. Chance has books on there. CJ Blaze is up in the house. She has a great channel. Again, Lisa R. Hall, again, great channels down there. Rip Curl, very smart man. RGL, Ilea, Wages World, Trinity has been doing some awesome projects. Jammer One. So make sure to go follow them. Again, thank you, all of the mods. Drop an M in the chat right now. All right, let's bring in my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So there is, this is nuts. So we have covered from kind of the, inception's probably a bad word to use, but we have covered this, Dex, as far as the idea of this. And of course, it's been in sci-fi for a very long time, but I don't know what the agenda is with trying to push this. A lot of folks believe that they want less of us around. They want less people having babies. And now they're coming up with this whole grow babies in a pod thing. And I think it's really, really disgusting. And this is literally playing God. Scientists grow human embryo in a lab without sperm, egg, or womb. Just to repeat that, scientists grow human embryo in a lab without sperm, egg, or womb. If they did find a way to do this all the way to a human, how? Dex, this is absolutely nuts. They made an embryo model. I guess they could... Go ahead.
Exactly. And they also, my understanding is it was also able to produce some of the hormones that I guess are detected in a test when you're doing a pregnancy test. So they got pretty far with this. And to do it without having, sperms or eggs or even a womb. Now, obviously, they're not going to get very far with this. It's only so many days they're going to pull it off. But it's obviously they're playing some really controversial games here, in my opinion. I know a lot of people don't like this kind of stuff. And it's kind of scary when you think about what science is trying to do and taking the place of what many of us take and consider, part of our faith and part of what, for those of us that are Christian, this is what God does, not what scientists should be doing.
Well, and it's like, what is just say in the future, if this becomes a thing, people could say order a baby and have it grown in a lab, and instead of having it themselves, going through the God-given gift of actually having a baby, and especially since there's a lot of folks that now they play the part of somebody who can have a baby, but they can't actually have a baby. You can do this, right? Well, first of all, what could these labs also do? They've already talked about making people perfect, about making people live longer, making people stronger, changing genetics to where you would have a super baby. Imagine having either a tall, 6'5", perfectly blonde, blue-eyed baby, or having a 6'5", perfect specimen of an African-American baby. It's like, this is absolutely terrifying that they would be able to edit this? And what if there is, government, intercession in this where they end up doing things that nobody knows about? And of course, they wouldn't say they would do that. What if because they've already done science and studies on how to make people more pliable and more flexible mentally, how they could just listen to you. They've done experiments that they've done in jails and prisons to make inmates more, calm and peaceful. What if they did that? Or what if they made it to where people would just listen and of course, listen to orders and be basically mentally puppets? Dex, go ahead.
Well, and I also wonder if some countries may look at this as a means to building advanced, I don't want to call it robotics, but advanced humanoids for the ability to control large, you know, uh, armies, if you want to call them that, of what I guess it's hard to call it a people. It's hard to call it a person when it's, created in a lab. But if they pop it in with a chip, they develop it in a lab, they mass produce it, they make it strong. It has no ties, it has no family, it has nothing. It's disposable to the government. It's disposable to a military. So would they look at this as a form of a drone? It's not really a drone, but it's a human. It's just they don't have to build all of the tech, all of the wiring, all of the balancing and gyroscopes to make it run, and batteries and power. They can just control it with some sort of implant, or even just
Neuralink.
just straight up, whether it's Neuralink or even before Neuralink comes around, control it through programming and development from an early stage, so that it's designed to or taught to only do one thing, and that one thing is to serve that military. It could be a crazy path towards creating these what you would think of as a drone army, but it's really not. It's really humans.
And it's like they've done the science. They say that the government was interested. This was a thing that we saw 3 or 4 years ago, and it was where they were able to remote control insects. And what they were actually interested in is the fact that they could control the insects in such a micro scale, because they wanted to get the smaller that they can do the electronics like this, the more likely it is that they could utilize that in humans and in human brains. That was something that I missed back then. But about 2 years later, there was an article that came out about how the government was really, really, really interested in how these scientists were like controlling moths, and they were controlling insect instincts, and they were basically shocking parts of the bugs to make them fly different directions. I don't know if you guys remember this. I don't even know if it was 4 or 5 years ago. It might have been 2 or 3. But then they said that the government was extremely interested in this, because the same technology that could do things on that kind of scale could also be used to go in and control different things in your brain. So I was like, what in the heck is going on here? This is something, there's a lot of things that are going on right now. And just me personally, how I grew up, I feel like people need to push pause. Like Tom Atier said, I think it was Tom Atier in chat said the other day, like, I'm okay with losing all this tech. I'm good by, just sitting by the campfire and everything goes off. Sometimes I feel like that. Sometimes I feel like, well, what if we did have everything turn off? I honestly think it might be, there might be positives to that. And I'm not saying it because it would be a horrible event. But some of us are like, this is, the science and technology and evolution is moving forward, and it's at breakneck speeds all of a sudden. And I don't think humans are going to be ready for this kind of advance. If you talk to ChatGPT, which a lot of you may not because of your values, and I get that. I ended up doing it, which I am totally against AI. And there's a lot of people chirping about how it's positive, but I know there's humans involved here. So there's evil humans, and there's evil involved in it. So of course it's not going to go the awesome path. We know without all of this AI and robotics that they are trying to basically cut people out and make every single dollar they can. They do not care about people. They do not care about families. They do not care about if you are doing well. They just care about themselves. And in that fact, when we have all of this cool technology that could be used for good, it's kind of like we all of a sudden have a Superman, but he turns into a villain. It's like you could be a Superman, you could use this stuff for good, but are they going to use it for good? I highly doubt it. And if you look at all the things that could be used for good right now, which they have the complete opportunity to do so, but they're not doing it. They're absolutely evil. Look at what they're doing with medicine. Look at what they're doing with all sorts of different things. So with this, I am one of, I guess in the future, there's probably going to be like terrorists or some, people that are like, I'm in support of not going AI. And I know there's a lot of folks that say, well, there's so many good things, but look at our people. Look at the people doing this. Look at the people at the forefront of it. They're the same people that are monitoring and censoring and doing all of these things to basically shape the planet how they want it shaped. And these are the same folks that are in charge of all of this. They're talking about putting Neuralinks, implants in our brains. And this is something that's real. Just a few years ago, this would have been absolutely unconceivable. And now it is something that they're saying is going to happen. And it's not 10, 15, 20, 30 years away. It's a couple years away, and it's already being tested. Dex, go ahead.
The scary thought about AI is to combat bad AI, you got to have AI. And that's what's really, I think, in my opinion, so scary about the evolution of it. It's as much as we want to say we don't want to have it, if we're going to do anything to defend ourselves against it, we've got to have it. Otherwise, it's sort of like saying, I'm against bang bangs, but I'm going to go into a fight with a person with a bang bang, right? It's like, well, you got to have one if you're going to, go to battle with somebody with that. And that's what's so unfortunate about it, because it will evolve. It's almost like you can't put that cat back in the bag, so to speak. Probably a bad analogy, but
no, that's a perfect. You don't go to a bang bang fight with a knife, right? Somebody said, ever hear about a missile hitting a hurricane? I don't know if you're talking about like how they've actually had real ideas of nuking hurricanes and nuking, not tornadoes, I think it's hurricanes, and they would put a nuke in the middle of a hurricane and it would essentially blast it to where everything stops, and then it cancels out the storm. That's actually a theory. I don't think they've ever done it. Pretty sure they haven't, but somebody actually considered that a couple years ago too, again, because they were having such bad storms during that first El Nino.
Imagine the fallout of that.
Yeah, what if it doesn't stop the hurricane? The theory's wrong. Then you have a hurricane of radioactive matter flying at you. But as far as this goes, I get that. So China's not going to stop. They're not going to have any tape to cut. And in fact, there's no way we can keep up with China at this point. And people are going, oh, we can, we do. The thing is China, our own Pentagon has admitted this. We even talked to the gentleman. We interviewed that gentleman who wrote that article. He ended up calling in. He happened to see my thing on Twitter and then called in. He even said he knows that guy personally that wrote that piece. He was the chief software officer, which was a position that was actually made directly for him because of his specific talents at the Pentagon. And as he left, he said that China is ahead of us in all of these categories. And this is before it came out officially that we were behind in 37 out of 44 key areas of this. And I just thought that was pretty wild that we had kind of that info before they even put it out. And it was through this guy's exit interview. And he said, basically, I don't want the blood on my hands, that once they are ahead, it's almost impossible to catch up, because once you're ahead, you're always trying to catch up to their last milestone that they hit. See, China doesn't have to worry about people voting if it's morally right. In fact, I'm sure China is doing babies in pods and clones and all sorts of other things because no one is stopping them. If they want to do something, they just do it. They don't have to wait for, people to approve of it. If Xi says get it done, then it's done. Same with a lot of the other countries. But what's even wilder, if you look, they are saying the stated facts, and they can't fact check this. They literally, nobody would be able to say this is wrong right now, because the official known information is that China's ahead of us in 37 out of 44 key areas in this specific technology. So like Dex said, even if we stop right now, they're not going to. And they would be able to send AI drones over in a matter of years. That's why I say, I just wish everybody would stop. And it would take a miracle for that to happen. I know that it's not realistic, and I'm just praying for. I guess I'm praying for something to happen that that harms it without harming us. I don't know. I think that it's not going to be good for people, and people will have the good stuff right now, but later down the road, people are really going to regret. We're going to be missing our humanity. Our humanity is flighting. It is going away. We're not going to have freedoms at all, like not even a single freedom in the future because of all of this stuff. Speaking of which, Dex, can you grab a tweet off of my Twitter? I think it was the last or second to last one about the cameras in London. I was going to show that, but I forgot to put that in here.
Yeah, it's going in screener now.
Speaking of which, let me show you this. This is in London, and I'll put it here in a second. They essentially have cameras that track. If you have a gas-powered car, you have to pay $15 or something per trip. So check this out. This is terrifying. This is where everything is headed, and people need to pay attention. And a lot of folks don't even know about this stuff, that it's happening. All right, so if it says that people of London are pushing back on new dystopian travel cameras. So check this out. The government ULEZ cameras all over London are being taken down by, quote, Blade Runners. The government is pushing a zero emissions policy that will charge people $15 a day if they have a gas car older than 2006 or a diesel car older than 2015. It says it's designed to limit the of movement for at least those able to afford it. So basically, if you can't afford a brand new car, then you're going to be paying, which makes so much sense. But that is one of these specialized cameras that's essentially sending out bills to everybody that is driving an old car, which, you know, they're probably trying to save that $15 so they can afford a new car so they don't get charged. It's kind of like if you can't pay a parking ticket, they just, in the Supreme Court here in Washington, if you had a bunch of tickets and you didn't pay, they would take your license. Well, then how are you going to get to work to then pay off those tickets? A judge actually found that this was an article about 2 years ago, found that it was unconstitutional to actually take somebody's license because they had unpaid tickets, because then they wouldn't be able to pay the tickets to get their license back because they couldn't get to work. It's kind of like this. It's like they're taking your money at the same time as limiting your freedom. This is absolutely terrifying. And guess what? It is coming. I guarantee it. This is something that has been talked about at all of the huge conferences, and it is going to come quickly, and a lot of people are not going to be aware. Places like London, these are test zones. Just like Washington, we were a test zone for CV. There were a lot of things done here that were not done anywhere else, and some of the tests that happened here, it all happened here. But yet, it tested badly, so they didn't do it at any other places, right? So I had the worst of it during CV here, and a lot of us Washingtonians did, because our actual restrictions were a lot worse than a lot of places. I think there were a couple places that might have been worse, but it was pretty bad. But again, this is a test zone. So in London, they're testing this. And I guarantee you they're going to get a lot of money from those $15 fines, and they're going to keep it going. All right. Thank you, Julie Pilkerton. I appreciate that. Thank you for the super chat and super sticker. And then Soldier Boy, thank you for subscribing. And thank you, Tritium, thank you for subscribing. Alien Facehuggers, thank you for becoming a member. Thank you. Meat Puppet 007 says Shout Puppet. Shout out to the mods. Hey, thank you so much for, again, using that space to shout somebody else out. That's awesome. Dex, do you want to talk about Saudi Arabia and Russia plan to extend?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit last week about the extension or the restriction of 1.3 million barrels a day from Saudi Arabia. That came in as another renewal for the month. Just yesterday, I think it was reported that they were going to extend it through the rest of the year. And now it turns out that Russia is also doing the same thing. So they are both planning this extension all the way to the end of the year of reducing the amount of oil output. Now, there's either two things going on here. Either one, they know, and they're trying to maximize profits out of this, and they're trying to drive the price up against the U.S. They probably were losing money when they thought they were going to make more out of China's recovery. That didn't really happen because there was expected to be a significant amount of crude oil purchasing over there, and it just didn't happen. Um, or or they know something big is about to happen that's going to reduce the amount of oil that we consume. And if you guys all remember, what was that thing that happened back in 2020, coming out of the thing that started in 2019? Well, we went into this mode and everybody stayed in place. And when that happened, nobody consumed oil. It was very little. It's just the trucks on the road and the few people that actually drove. Most people were working from home or didn't work at all, and oil prices plummeted because obviously the supply was huge. So there's one of two things happening here. Either they're just being greedy and they're trying to hurt the West, or they know something's coming and they're trying to maximize the amount of money they can get now before it crashes, which it will crash down if there's a whole bunch of supply and no demand.
So this in itself could be a giant disaster. Anybody that travels on a daily basis, it would not be unseeable or unfeasible for us to hit a $10 a gallon gas or a $15 a gallon gas. This sounds absolutely nuts, but if there is some sort of event that happens that affects it severely, you could be talking about people waiting at gas stations all over the country, waiting to buy $15 a gallon gas. It doesn't seem like, that just seems so unreal because we've never had something similar to that. Only under huge disasters. But they are saying, and by they, I mean, there's a lot of folks around the country in different utility positions. There's even folks that deliver gas, the truck drivers. We actually have a truck driver's line on 22440 Marf. They're saying that gas is about to go up. We actually just got a caller the other night that said that they heard that Indiana was going to have $7 a gallon gas in the next month. I don't know if that's true, but again, if what they say is going to happens, then we could have incredible boosts, and that's going to hurt people more than anything. The gas and getting places is a huge deal, and a lot of folks think that this is because they're trying to limit people moving around. Imagine if it's $15 a gallon, how many places are you really going to go? Especially like in a vehicle, we have a lot of kids, so we have to have an 8-seater. We literally cannot have a 7-person vehicle. We have to have 8. So there's not many options that are gas efficient there unless you have $60, $70, $80,000 to spend on something electric. But so we get like 7-8 miles per gallon, or at least it seems like that. If you could imagine going somewhere, going to the other side of town and spending $45 per trip, that is going to add up incredibly fast. And it's already bad at $5 a gallon. It hit $6.10 at one point. It's like, this is absolutely insane, and nobody can afford it. Even people, they're trying to kill the middle class, to be honest. The middle class that would normally be doing okay is not. You can see the videos all over the internet of people going, how are people living? Nobody is. Everybody is having problems. Nobody can afford $10 eggs. Nobody can afford $8 bread. This is absurd, and people are gonna get pissed. It's like they're pushing people to the very edge, and I'm telling you, that edge is coming faster than people think, and that's why we prep. And then Apple stocks fall on reports that China agencies are barring iPhone use. Meba007, as a truck driver, most drivers won't drive or can't afford to deliver freight at 7+. Yeah, think about that, what that will do to our supply chain, Puppet. That's bad. This is even worse. So as we know, Huawei and phone companies like this, we got out of the picture. We said, we're barring these. This isn't even a tip for tat for that. This is other things. The government barring Apple phones is, and they're even trying to limit Apple from even being around China, is a huge deal. This is like one of our biggest companies, which we kind of saw the signs of this when Apple was trying to move away from China, that they are now trying to bar anybody having an iPhone in the government. This is a sign of war. If you don't know what a sign of war is, this is it. This is just a small part of the economic war that is being waged right now. Apple Inc. suffered its worst stock decline in a month following reports that Chinese government agencies have barred staff from using iPhones at work. The orders were handed down in August to employees at ministries whose portfolios are focused on investment, trade, and international affairs, the South China Morning Post learned. Again, this is, and what's crazier is this is actually South China Morning Post. Now, after I read this, I went in and there was another article on the South China Morning Post. I think I'll pull it up here in a second. I'll do it when Dex takes over. There was another article essentially saying that they're admitting some faults, and I'm like, why is China, which this has to be really approved by their CCP, why are they admitting some of this stuff unless it's for a purpose? I'll try to pull it up. I'm not going to try to wing it off of memory, but there's a lot of stuff from their angle. It's like you can tell what they are telling their people, that something is coming. It says the restrictions on phone usage were not imposed on all ministries and order targets only the iPhone, designed in California, and does not involve other smartphones from foreign brands, according to sources with knowledge of the situation. Employees at some central government agencies received instructions via chat groups and in meetings to stop bringing such gadgets into the office, said the Wall Street Journal, citing people familiar with the matter. Apple shares slid 3.6% to $182 in New York on Wednesday, making the biggest single-day drop since August 4th. Apple had gained 46% this year before the decline, part of a broader run-up in tech stocks. The company enjoys widespread popularity in China, its largest international market. Despite rising resentment of American efforts to contain the Asian country's technology industry, Apple's iPhones are among the country's best sellers and are common in both government and the private sector. But now these private sectors and government buildings are essentially saying, do not bring these to the office. They're kind of implying that they're either used for spying or it's just a big FU to the U.S. Now, this is something that this hurts people's pockets, and that's when you start going into war, is when people's pockets are hurt. They don't care if people are hurt. They care when their pockets are hurt. Dex, I'm going to try to find this other thing. Basically,
this is actually a really big deal in multiple ways. It's a big deal. We don't talk about stocks here. It's not typically something we talk about unless we're talking about the market as a whole or how things are going financially. But when a stock like this moves significantly, there is meaning behind it. And for China to start telling its government officials they can no longer use iPhones, and specifically iPhones, not any other phones, that's a very interesting signal, because look at what it did to the stock price. That means they know something big is happening here. And let's not forget, they're made there. Apple has a huge deal with China. Now they're trying to get out. They're trying to diversify and make manufacturing happen in lots of different places because of the problems with China. But they also have to kowtow to China, like, put certain things on the phones, not allow, give them back doors, give them all those, requirements that China says, hey, if a phone's going to be sold in our country, it has to meet these requirements. You've got to be able to disable things. You've got to be able to do that. So, if they're going to sell in that country, they have to abide by it. So they've been in bed, so to speak, from a business relationship standpoint with China. And for them to do this, it's a big slap. And it's not, I don't think it's a slap at Apple as much as it's a slap at the US. And it's a sign of what may be coming as they are starting to potentially wall off and make sure that everything they're doing is contained and built and manufactured and controlled in China. It was only a year ago that the headlines were iPhones were becoming the most popular phone in China. It was, a huge amount of sales for Apple. And it wasn't something that, I guess Huawei and others would look at that are Chinese backed and Chinese owned companies would want that external competition in their country. On the flip side, Samsung hardly sells any phones in China. It's like 0.06% penetration, where Apple is much more significant. I think they're somewhere in the neighborhood of 29% of total sales were Apple iPhones in China. So
which is
they could
wild.
be looking at this as a threat. Yeah, that was a year ago, so it's even higher. So they could be looking at this as a threat, and they're trying to eliminate it. or push it down. It could be retaliatory for Apple's diversification. It could also be, as we're talking about, as they are seemingly changing a lot of what they're doing and walling off, and which would be a preparation, as we've suggested, for conflict. Not that an iPhone itself is all about it, but it's the geopolitics and the business aspects that go into the stuff that happens pre-conflict.
Well, here was a couple of things. They actually edited this since 4 p.m. So there was several that essentially the South China Morning Post. You have to understand this is essentially propaganda, their version of propaganda. There's just like our propaganda and Russia's propaganda. All mainstream media, doesn't matter what country, it's filled with their biases, their ganda, right? But they are admitting a ton of downturn in their economy. And I just don't see, China's never done that. They've always tried to cover it up. Every part of how their system is set up is to where, down to the very local government, they always try to cover up any kind of mistakes. I mean, we saw a huge screw up during the entire CV, or at least that's what they played it out to us. When the very first thing was starting, they were having, 300 people gather at a dinner with this V going around, and you see the local government, they always try to push it down to the next person. This is part of how their thing works. Like, nobody wants to take the responsibility. They try to, push it somewhere else. So the fact that they are so openly talking about this when the CCP doesn't normally allow this, why are they pushing very hard that their economy is in a downturn and that it's going so bad? I don't think any of this is on accident. Something is going on here, which by the way, on one of their main pages, they're talking about how how China can stop a nuclear war in UKR. You always have to look at the other people's kind of opinions of stuff, because you'll see little hints of you have to look at all sides of the coin and try to pick out what you can, the common denominators, and you get somewhere close to the truth when you really add up about 4 or 5 different countries' newses. But you have to really go on opposite sides of it, because all of the Western countries are really under the same umbrella. All of the Eastern countries are really under the same umbrella. So you got to kind of find something in the middle. By the way, Laguna Berry, thank you. It says, good to see you, Foogle fam. DE and the W, micro style, and others are being used. FYI, the UN Agenda 2030 signed by 193 countries. Signed in 2015. Everything is leading there. Bible prophecy before your eyes. And by the way, I haven't checked up on like the third temple, but I told you guys I watched that documentary about who they said that the Antichrist was, and it's absolutely wild. They described a certain person that's developing Neuralink and other things, and I'm like, this is nuts. I kind of want to do a whole video on that, and I told you guys I want to use clips of that, so I'm seeing what I have to do to actually play clips of it if I can. It's a 20-year-old documentary that predicted stuff, or that to a T before he was around. Before we move on, make sure to go check out Energy if you are looking up for a backup power supply. Exactly what we've been talking about with fuel and gas. Either way, even if it's at $5 a gallon, any kind of disaster happens, we know it's going to go shooting up. Otherwise, gas in general, the one bad part about it is that you have to have gas. Solar, it's awesome because if you have solar panels, essentially you have what you need. You don't need to store anything besides those panels, which if you get them from Energy, they actually have folding panels that can stack and go literally in a closet somewhere. But these, essentially, they can create power out of nothing. They can create power from the sun. So every single day that the sun rises, even on a cloudy day, you can have power coming in and stored, ready to use when you need it. Or you can charge these from your walls and have it basically as a huge, gigantic battery bank. And when your power goes off, you switch over to this. This is an expandable unit, so you can actually, like Lego, stack different modular units onto it. You can add up to 96 batteries on it. Again, it is literally like Lego. And what's even cooler is the mods are like Lego. So if you wanted to add, say, a UPS rapid charger. It's about half the size of a battery, and it allows you to plug, say, a fridge into this and this into the wall, and when your power goes out, boom, it switches over automatically. Not only does it do that, its dual use is it is a super rapid charger. It can charge at 1,200 watts per hour, and the batteries, each battery is 1,000. So you can literally charge a huge 1,000 watt hour battery in like 40 minutes. It's absolutely insane. So this is a game changer. Everybody was waiting for this a very long time. They had a small batch, and then that sold out. So you might have to wait a little bit, but this is definitely worth it if you already have the Flex 1500. It was in such high demand that they actually held 30 and didn't advertise them anywhere for a whole weekend so the Foogle fam could grab some. So again, I'm hoping that some of you got that, but they are really, really in high demand. Also check out the Tactical. That is their military version. This is actually going to be shipping out with the SBIR Army Phase 2 contract. So along with the Air Force Research Laboratory, this company is directly working with them. They developed this, and it won the Army contract. So it's going to be on the back of Humvees here in a second. So this is truly tactical, built-in battery heaters, 1,500-pound latches, steel reinforced frame. It could fall off a truck and still be running. So these things are awesome. They're silent, which means nobody's going to hear you have power, and they're incredibly easy. All you do is plug it in. So you won't have to deal with the craziness at the pump. If we have even a minor disaster happen, that's what happens. So again, if SHTF happens, you can only imagine what gas pumps will be like if they even run. If we have a grid down, you will not have access to gas whatsoever unless you know a guy. All right, that's marfugglenews.com/energy. You will get a great discount, and you'll be supporting our channel at the same time. We're independent, so we appreciate your help. All right, Dex, do you want to go at a look at the uranium-based ammo the U.S. is sending to Ukraine?
So this Wednesday, I guess they announced they're sending more depleted uranium anti-tank rounds to UKR. I think we've heard about them being there before. Well, I know we've talked about it being shipped there. We even had one instance of a large explosion that I think a lot of people speculated might have been the first batch that had gotten targeted in an arms facility. But this is they're still heading that direction. I know a lot of people have talked about the cluster munitions or the other ones, but the uranium ones, the reason this is such an issue, obviously they're very strong. They can pierce through tanks and things like that, so they're extremely effective. But because they're made with depleted uranium, which is obviously a byproduct of uranium enrichment, there's a lot of people that are concerned, especially Russia, as they like to point out, that this looks very much like it can be considered a, nuclear style device, even though it's not the same. It's not like a nuke that, like you would think of a traditional nuke as a big boom. It's just that the unit itself is made from that depleted uranium, but it does put off a small amount.
It causes
they consider
cancer.
it to be.
It is bad.
Yeah, it is bad. They consider it to be a light load and not enough that it should be an issue. But we've been making them since the 70s. I think it's been around for quite a long time. But it's also one of those things that's very controversial as to whether or not we should be using them or anyone should be using them. And it was definitely one of the red lines. And again, here we are talking about those red lines that Russia has put out. When they first got wind that this was going to happen, they said, "Hey, that's going to be one of those red lines, and if you do that, that might open the door, so to speak, for us to use nukes as well." So we'll have to see, but again, more are heading that direction.
Yeah, and we just talked about this yesterday because what was the other red line we talked about yesterday or the day before with Russia?
Nukes going into UK, into British territories, which haven't been there for 15 years.
That's right. So the U.S. is talking about moving nukes back to British territory. So they said essentially another red line, and most people are desensitized to that. Most people go, "Oh, well," because they have set a bunch of red lines, but then they never do anything. But when is it through allies, or is it through the strength of their newfound allies like Cuba, South Africa, China, India? At what point do they feel confident enough to go, okay, well, we told you on all of these things, now we're going to strike back, and we said, we told you so. That's what folks are worried about, is that they actually do something. But again, we can't just assume they're not going to do anything forever. That's the thing. You can't underestimate your enemy. It's not a safe thing to do. And this is news from a prepper standpoint. So as a prepper, we look at it and go, even if there's a small chance for it, we would rather know about it than be blindsided. That's why I don't get people that are so like weird about this kind of stuff, and I don't want to hear it. Oh, it stresses me out, or it gives me a panic attack. It's like, I would rather know than not know. If something bad happens, you guys are going to be so much better off when the phones go off, your car stops, and everything turns off. There's going to be so many people out there that are like, what's going on? Oh, maybe it's just a power transformer out. Oh, but my phone's out too. Oh, what is that? There's going to be so many people that are not going to know what's happening when all of this stuff goes down. It's insane. You guys will go, oh, I know what this is. And you're going to be better off for it. I know it. Just like in CV, when we said, hey, this is looking like it's going to happen. We gave you multiple warnings. We said, hey, CV, they're doing tabletop exercises. They're practicing in masks. They're doing these weird drills where they're having people line up and do all this kind of crazy stuff. 6 months later was 2019, and boom, it happened. And we knew they were drilling and exercising. Now they're drilling and exercising for nuclear disasters. Now they're drilling and exercising for WW3. And it's not like it doesn't match what all the NATO countries are doing. Countries like Romania, Poland, they literally have trenches dug in their borders. I mean, when do you see, when you go to the border of your country and literally see army trenches? That's a sign of war. Not to mention the economic war that's going on, like China barring iPhones from government stuff, same as the U.S. barring DJI stuff from its government and law enforcement, barring Huawei, barring smartwatches from the Navy. You know, all these things that are happening. This is the lead up to a massive war. And people are just so far away from the last massive war, we don't know what it looks like. And again, during WW2, nobody really realized. I don't think they called it a world war back then, did they? Was there headlines on newspapers saying WW2 until afterwards, or until big things happened, right? It's like you don't realize while you're in it, because I think we're already in WW3. Dex, do you know if, like, because I know that there's, like, I see an imprint of a picture of a newspaper saying WW3. But in the day, was that considered like fear porn? You know what I mean? Like, oh, they're exaggerating. I'm sure when Pearl Harbor happened, it was probably considered WW3.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess at some point, definitely by the time history gets around to writing it, they'll definitely claim the period of time being, WW2 versus WW3 versus just, global conflicts that happen. I think it's got to be on multiple fronts at the same time and significantly sized. So many will, and I could even, agree that we're sort of in it. We're in a version of that, or it seems like we've started a version of that. But I don't know, there's not like necessarily a prescription that says, oh, once this happens, then we all label it that, and they all just come out. But they'll, if the media can get a buzz out of it, they certainly will.
Well, either way, it's like before Pearl Harbor, we were sending tons of money over to Europe, and Americans were doing the same exact thing. They were saying, why are we sending all this money to a war that's not on our front? And the exact same parties came out. In fact, the exact same party, This Country First party, that was back then that they were like, oh, why are we sending this money away when we could be using it here? There's people poor here. And then Pearl Harbor happened, and it all changed overnight. That's why I say I think that there is some sort of Pearl Harbor event coming, and not because I'm trying to scare people. I'm looking at the signs. History repeats itself. Yesterday, we covered how they are catching Chinese tourists, people posing as tourists, going and monitoring our military bases. Go look at the history of Pearl Harbor. A very famous Japanese tourist with a camera would walk around, and he was actually surveying our Navy before an attack. Not to mention the balloons flying a direct line over all of our military bases. It's like These things are obvious signs that even if it's manufactured, they're doing the background work before this happens. This is odd. They found a mysterious golden orb at the bottom of the ocean. But if you look at it, it almost looks like this is just my opinion. It almost looks like a installation or something, like one of those like the corner of a packaging thing from a big container or something. I don't know. Such a weird looking picture though, too. What do you think it is, Dex? Oh,
I don't honestly, I have no idea. But they did find this thing like 2 miles deep off of the coast of Alaska. So that's definitely a hole. They say there's a hole in it. So something either tried to get in or out. But they don't even know what it is. They've got all sorts of speculation, that's for sure. It's definitely one of those creepy kind of things you're going to go, what is this? And we can all come up with probably 1,000 ideas of what it is. But certainly, let's not leave that as a chance for you not to leave a comment below. So why don't you tell us what you think it is based off of this picture in a comment down below?
well, and it looks like this piece right here to the side almost looks like the exact same size of this area, right? And this piece looks like it goes in this bottom chunk. So it just maybe it's a weird plastic slash installation. You know that installation that you can spray into stuff and then it hardens? That's what it kind of looks like to me. And maybe
Yeah, that foam spray insulation.
yep, exactly. It looks kind of like that. Um, but the stupidest things get the world's attention now. And it's specifically shaped. It's kind of like a diamond, but the corners are kind of frayed off. Looks like a fish went up to it and ate and made that its home. There could be a fish living underneath that. But what would that be a piece to? Is that the front of a plane? Maybe a nose piece? They said how big did they say it was? Do we know? Is it a foot or 2 feet or kind of looks like it could be because inside the planes to keep it light, don't they have like a I don't know, like a I don't know what they call that material. It almost looks whoa. What if it was Amelia Earhart's plane or something, right? I'm sure it's not in the same area, but
They don't say the size,
yeah,
but
that's weird.
but they did suck it up. They did bring it back to the top, and they're exploring it. And but they have even after exploring it, came out and said they still can't tell what it is.
And then it almost looks like it's organic, like it's a spider web. Do you see how it's latched onto this rock? But that's the weird part, is because it looks like something solid, but then it looks like maybe it's a new animal that weaves a golden web or something, or a kind of a sea spider type thing, or some weird animal that can make a nest like this. I don't know. I have no
Alien
idea. Yeah, an alien.
alien eggs.
Alien eggs. Oh my gosh, and it busted out, Dex. Uh-oh.
They're coming for us.
You are right.
Adam, I need you to stop talking right now. Come with me. You are not supposed to know that.
Sure. Hold on one second. Dex, do you want to cover the next story? I've got to do something.
I'm afraid to. They're coming for me too.
Just talk about Air Canada for a second.
So, folks, as we've talked, man, these air stories are just getting more and more ridiculous. So, as we talked about the Delta flight a couple days ago, that really nasty poopy flight, if you want to call it that, where they literally took off to Barcelona from Atlanta, had to turn around and deplane. And by the way, it took them, it's in overflow, you can see this, over 5 hours to get that plane back in operation after that incident. Well, here's another interesting, crazy one. So these passengers that were on Air Canada refused to sit in seats that had recently been vomited in. I guess apparently whoever was flying in didn't like the rough air and or had maybe a little too much to drink, and they messed up some seats. And of course, the solution to that was let's sprinkle some coffee grounds on it and pat it up with some towels and tell the next customer it's okay. We'll spray it with some perfume and you won't smell it. They refused to sit. And as they continued to refuse to sit, they were even threatened to be put on a no-fly list if they kept complaining. So I guess later they just kicked them off because they refused to sit in those seats. And I think I would too, especially if the plane was full. I think I'd grab the next plane. I don't know if I want to sit in an apparently moist and smelly seat that was just covered over with some Chanel and coffee grinds. It's not my idea of a long flight or a comfortably long flight. How about you, Adam? What do you think?
I think that the object was just a piece of construction, and I would sit and puke anytime. I personally think that the other day we covered a story that was do you remember they changed planes for somebody who had a mess out their back end? So I'm surprised that this wasn't the same kind of bio emergency. Do you remember that? It was just
Yeah.
2 days
Oh
ago.
yeah, I mentioned that earlier when you were being abducted, but yes, they it reported that was a 5 hour over 5 hour cleanup on that plane
From the which one? The one from the behind or from the front?
from the behind.
Oh
Yeah, that
man,
Delta flight, it took them
5
over 5
hours.
hours. 5 hours to clean that plane.
Did they hit multiple Taco Bells? Like what in the heck? 5 hour cleanup? Like I'm thinking of an episode of Dexter or something, only much grosser. Okay, well,
Chartster.
Chartster. Don't get everybody started. Across the northern hemisphere, now the time to catch a new comet before it vanishes for 400 years. So, man, I'm so fascinated by all of these kind of weird star events. You know, for a while there, I don't know if it was during CV, maybe it was, because I feel like we drove just to drive to get out of the house. But do you remember that dual-tailed comet that just overnight disappeared? The one that I think you were with me. I drove like super far out of into the boonies to see it. Do you guys remember what that was called? The two-tailed comet that was visible in the sky? What was that called? It wasn't Apophis. It was something else. Do you remember, Dex? Let's see if
Oh,
anybody.
I was here and I remembered. I just don't remember the name. I was trying to find it quickly, but no success.
Those somebody, it wasn't Hale Bopp. This was just like a couple years ago. Nope, not Hale Bopp. And it had two tails, and they said it was going to be as bright as the moon.
Neowise?
Neowise. Yeah, I think that was it.
Yeah, Neowise had two tails in 2020.
Yes, and that was so wild because they said it was going to be as bright as the moon in the sky, and then from like a Tuesday to a Wednesday, it just said, it just blew up and it got destroyed. So this thing that's millions of probably, however many light years away or whatever, or thousands of miles, we are seeing it back in time. We just happen to be able to visualize it, see it, and then from that one day, we see it disappear. It made me think that like there's something like a dart that hit it. In the time, because it took we did the math on it back then. You remember that? We took the math on how fast our fastest rockets go, and it was going to take like 2.5 years. Then we took that time for what the distance they said it was. Then we did the math on our fastest rocket, or what they said the exact speed of how fast our ships travel. And if you go back, there were 3 secret launches from basically classified launches from NASA and from SpaceX. They were classified. They had a classified payload. And it was like almost exactly the time period lined up. So implying that maybe that the governments saw that thing and sent like a dart type thing and destroyed it. It's a little fringe, it's a little out there, but it was kind of crazy that it lined up with the distance, the amount of time it would take if we did launch something and tried to blow it up, how long it would take. It lined up perfectly with classified payloads that were launched in, I think, Florida, Cape Canaveral. But anyways, and then a newly discovered comet is swinging through our cosmic neighborhood for the first time in more than 400 years. Stargazers across northern hemisphere could catch a glimpse as soon as possible, either this week or early next, because it will be another 400 years before the wandering ice ball returns. It's about a half-mile wide, which is I think that's a planet killer, if it was going to hit us. But it's this comet, which is a kilometer-sized, half a mile, will sweep safely past Earth on September 12th, passing within 78 million miles. It says that, by the way, NEOWISE, near-Earth object, right? WISE. I never thought of that. They actually named it NEOWISE. Anyways, early risers should look towards the northeastern horizon about 1.5 hours before dawn. To be specific, less than 10 degrees so above the horizon. So so 10 degrees. So it's going to be like literally right over the horizon. You're going to barely be able to see it if you are in the right place. And it's going to be near the constellation Leo. The comet will brighten as it gets closer to the sun, but will drop lower in the sky. Now, when this happens, we'll try to, if we can get one, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of digital telescope that's focusing on it. For those of you who can't see it, when it comes time, we'll try to find some sort of link to digitally watch it if you can't. Will you be trying to find a spot to see it? Let me know in the comments down below. Bandy Bear, thanks, guys. I appreciate all your hard work getting all the info out to everyone. And thanks for all the laughs. Well, no problem. That's what we're here for. That's absolutely what we're here for.
No, it's not. You are supposed to tell them information that we tell you.
Sorry, I get it. Okay, got it. Carolyn Kisner, thank you. Billy the Kid Norwood, thank you so much. Soul Sister, grow your own food. Appreciate you, Marf. Would love for you or anyone interested to check out our garden. We're going to have to be self-sufficient. We have a very small garden, and we couldn't be self-sustaining if we could, but that's why, actually, I can't talk about it. So it's not there. Let's see. I did want to mention this. This is actually a good time. Make sure to go check out Harvest Right. So this is what I'm going to be getting into. I'm really pumped and excited about it because a lot of my preps and a lot of my freeze-dried food I have actually bought. I've tried to buy bulk. Like I've tried to get stuff from My Patriot Supply and others. And essentially freeze-dried is one of the best ways to preserve your food. If you have a garden, again, like Soul Sister, then you can actually preserve that. And you can preserve it for up to 25 years. Again, it's an awesome, awesome, awesome unit. They have $300 off on the Pro right now, so make sure to go check it out. It is at marfooglenews.com/freeze. It actually preserves food. It's actually the best way to preserve food. It keeps in almost all of the flavor. And again, it's going to last over 2 decades. You can seal it in Mylar bags, and then you'll have it for whenever you need it. You can customize your own prep food. You don't have to go buy a prepackaged thing that you don't know what you're going to get. This, you can preserve pretty much anything, from raw meats to cooked meats to veggies to any kind of food. Pretty much everything can be freeze-dried. So go over and check it out, marfooglenews.com/freeze. But that wasn't actually, that was going to be later. So I'll just do a quick mention. Make sure to go over and check out EMP Shield at marfooglenews.com/EMP. If you put this in your car or your truck, you'll be able to get through and get to where you need to go to bug out or to get home to bug in. It takes 10 minutes to wire it to your battery, red to red, black to black on your battery, and green to ground a part of your frame, and you're done. That's how easy it is, and you'll be able to keep running through multiple EMP strikes or a CME, a Carrington level event from the sun. marfooglenews.com/EMP. And if this will be the last time we interrupt things, marfooglenews.com/freeze if you want to go check out the Harvest Right freeze dryers. Best brand out there. But yeah, crazy stuff. And then we're going to talk about they're declaring a level 2 energy emergency as the Texas grid strains. So out of ERCOT, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas declared a level 2 energy emergency Wednesday evening. DEX, they're basically saying that folks need to conserve, otherwise they could have a really bad event happen there.
In That's correct. So this just came out before the show, a little bit before the show started, and they are now reserves are below 1750, which is a pretty low number. I don't know what that number actually means, but based on what they're telling people, is if they don't stop or start conserving, they may have to start moving into rolling blackouts. So that's the next step. So they are on the brink of it, and they're telling people, hey, please back off on the power consumption right now. Kind of a crazy thing to think about. Like we're still in a place in our modern times that we do not and cannot produce enough electricity to sustain, what we're using, what we're doing. So it's kind of crazy. And of course, somebody like Texas, which is so big, they've got so many alternative supplies that are also feeding into their grid. They've got a little bit of everything added. They've got Elon there doing all sorts of stuff with batteries, and they have their own grid too. So ERCOT is one of the few. It's obviously tied in with Mexico and the rest of the U.S. grid, but they have their own grid for Texas. That's so anyway, for those of you folks that are living in Texas, maybe bump the thermostat up a little bit, or turn off some lights, or help out, or get ready. Probably what you need to do is get ready, because it sounds to me like everybody's charging their Teslas, and that's gonna not gonna change, and you're gonna probably be going through rolling blackouts if they don't get this resolved quickly.
Yeah, this is like something like it's just crazy that today we have this happen all over the place. California had those rolling blackouts when the fires hit, up to 8 days in some areas, and it's like this is why people have backup generators. If you can't get a solar generator, get yourself a gas powered generator just in case, especially if you have things like CPAP machines or oxygen machines. Again, oxygen machines usually have a backup battery, but they only last for so long. That's definitely something to think about. And this is why people obviously prep. Things like this is out of their control. And what's nuts to me is like, the that we can have this thing where the government actually decides to turn off power. One of the most important things out there. And then Tropical Storm Lee path, meteorologists project where it's heading and when it will become a hurricane. So we'll watch this as it goes along, but essentially the Tropical Storm Lee is forecast to become, quote, extremely dangerous. What's so crazy is the ones that they don't talk about in the news always end up being like crazy, but the ones they do hype up always end up being like almost nothing. But we don't know anymore. The last 3 years that I've been covering this, and I've been covering it for 5, but the last 3 years, it has definitely taken a crazy turn. Like, it is unpredictable. Some of the ones they have predicted, I remember when I first started this channel, they hyped up this one storm so big. Like, everybody was like, it's and then when it hit, it was nothing. I remember the same year, Washington had this huge storm coming, and they called it something like chaos in Washington. All the news had these like, if anybody can remember from Washington, they had like an Armageddon or something in the name on all the news stations, like Washington, cataclysm or something, and it ended up like being this tiny storm, and they had a meme that came out, and it was like literally a outdoor table with a plastic chair tipped over, and they're like Washington Geddon or something, we survived. And it was funny because it was such a weak storm. So, but the thing is you got to take these seriously, especially if you're in the wake of Lee. I'm sure if you are in the wake of this, you probably have been through storms as well, because it's not super rare. But you need to really have your stuff kind of set up and have a backup plan. The storm is expected to become a, quote, major hurricane in a couple of days, the NHC. As the storm intensifies at a steady to rapid pace, it may become a Category 4 hurricane, a potentially catastrophic storm with sustained winds of 130 to 156 miles. That's, taking off roofs kind of speeds as it travels over very warm water. And it's going to be the path is actually going to be over, it says it's expected to pass near northern Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico this weekend, and then it's include the U.S. Virgin Islands. Then it's going to head towards Florida. So again, and it could go up. I don't know if they have an exact path because it's so far out. It's it will most
So
probable
the
scenarios lead that will track far enough north to bring just a brush of gusty winds and showers to northern Leeward Islands. Dex, do you want go ahead?
Yeah, I was just gonna say the it's way too early to predict outside of about 5 days, and where they're showing it, where it can still be a major hurricane, it's still only north of say the Dominican Republic in about 5 days, so Monday. But what they call the spaghetti models do show a lot of it turning towards the north. Now, way too early to actually to rely on that. You need to wait another 5 or 6 days before you actually get some decent information as to whether or not this will impact Florida or impact the Atlantic coast, or maybe even do something crazy like go south and head into the Gulf. But right now it looks like it's going to come in towards Florida and then go straight north. So if that is true, it's going to be something that maybe people from say South Carolina up the East Coast to towards DC area I need to be paying attention to. But again, it's early right now. It's going to be significant in a couple days, but it won't be significant on our land probably for another 6 to 10 days before we'll know a really good idea of how close it's going to get to and where it's going to impact the U.S. if it even hits us at all.
Sorry about that. My mic wasn't turning on. So we'll follow it, and in the next couple days we'll update you, and we'll most definitely update you on Friday because it's going to be close enough to really see a better path of it. So just keep following, and then thank you, Mimi Carstel from Cape Town, South Africa. Listen every day. One of my best friends is actually from South Africa. Don't believe Cape Town. I would have to ask, but he lived all over South Africa. He is one of the most interesting people we know, actually. Has crazy, crazy stories from South Africa. Let's see here. And thank you so much. Every time I see ZAR, it's ZAR. It's because you have the South African rand. I think of who was it? It was a creator, and somebody had donated. Was it a gamer? I feel like it was. Who was it? It was somebody in our niche. Oh, it might have been Canadian Prep. No, he doesn't do lives. It was another prepper, and maybe it's one of our Marfoogle friends. But I was in the chat, and somebody gifted. It was like $1,000, and it appears $1,000 in ZAR, or it was 500 or something, and they were like, "Oh my gosh!" They were like jumping up and down, and then somebody told them. Then for like 10 minutes, this person was like jumping up and down, and then they were like, "That's in ZAR, South African rand." So it's about. It was like something. It was like $4. It was $10 or something like that. But I just remember seeing it, and then he felt so stupid afterwards, and it was super awkward to watch. But I just remember that it was so funny. Everybody was like, "Whoa, that's crazy! Who does that?" He was like, "That's the biggest super chat I've ever seen." It was so hilarious. I gotta remember who that was. I feel like they had to like go on, and they felt so dumb about it. They apologized and made like a video about it, and they thanked them. Let's see here. And I think it was because the reaction after they realized it. I think it wasn't the best reaction afterwards. Dex, let's go over the web only. And again, we have some pretty nasty stuff in there today. There's actually quite some alarming stuff down there as well.
Yeah, there certainly is. So head over to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, or open up that show notes link down below in the description. It'll take you right here to this page. Don't forget, you can still enter to win that Rezavani tank. We've talked about it a lot. It's from My Patriot Supply. So make sure you click that image if you want to get your chance to enter to win. Everything else is happening here. Lots going on. This is the rest of the story. So for those of you that follow the tech industry and the internet, one of the first monopoly trials, when's the last time we heard about Monopoly? And I'm not talking about the game. I'm talking about the government going after companies that are acting like monopolies. Well, they're going after the Oogs, the owner of this platform. And it's the first basically modern internet era monopoly trial. So if you're interested in that, speaking of the tech industry, Amazon, Google, Facebook, all of them are getting hit by EU right now. Even Apple, I think, is in that list. So lots happening there. James from the formerly from Project V, and you should know what I'm talking about. They've got a story out about him, just basically saying how bad he was at spending money and buying stuff for his girlfriend. Of course, they're not going to put out anything that's positive because it's coming from Project V, which he's no longer part of. But it's there if you want to see what they're talking about. As I mentioned, that Delta plane is also in here, the 5-hour cleanup. We've got definitely some updates on the political side. They're expecting something big with the current president's son, hopefully, or they're saying in the next week or so. And some are even suggesting 10 years, but I don't know. You never know when it comes to politicians and their families. Of course, the rest of the political coverage is there from the IT worker who was apparently struck a deal to Pence and whoever else. They're all here. If you want to see what's going on in that spectrum, we typically try to put enough in there for you. Some other stuff going on, like more schools are putting the coverings on. So that's happening in Alabama, Maryland, and other locations. So if you're curious about that, we do have some updates with what's happening in the conflict in Europe, whether with both Bosnia, also the Romanian topic we talked about earlier, with the drone incident. And by the way, I'll go ahead and give you my thoughts on that real quick. For what it's worth, I kind of wonder, like we saw this with Poland, but did it was an accident then, and it was questionable as to which side did it. But Article 5 talks about an attack, and I don't know if you really can consider an accident an attack versus an intentional targeting. So it'll be interesting to see if this raising of Romania to NATO over this incident really does anything, or if they treat it sort of like they did with Poland, which was like, yeah, we're looking into it, but nothing really comes from it. We do have the rest of the updates on Russia there as well, and including an interesting article about Xi and his arrogance. And of course, painting the picture of the downfall of China, but take that one with a grain of salt. And then, if you didn't know, and you may have to refresh this when it was added a little later, Mr. Gilly Bates is betting big on Anheuser-Busch. Apparently, something to the tune of like 10 million, or no, sorry, $100 million he has invested in Anheuser-Busch, which is interesting that his foundational trust is buying 100 million in Anheuser-Busch. And of course, that company is in the tanker right now over the whole Bud Light fiasco with Mulvaney. So maybe he's trying to cash in on an opportunity and
cheap
see
stock.
if he can make a buck. It's cheap stock. Yeah, maybe he just knows it's eventually going to come back because everybody drinks beer. But when he does something, it's kind of interesting. So pay attention. If you want to know more about it, you can read all about it from our website. Go to marfooglenews.com. Click on the thumbnail for the show, or open up that show notes link down below in the description. Back over to you, Adam.
That's really, really interesting. That I'm sure people are watching this going, oh, I should get it too. Just don't. It's yeah. That has finally quieted down, though. That was going for so much longer than I thought it was. At least the talk about it, creation videos all over YouTube about it. The Quartering covered it like every day. There was always something new on it. And then that James O'Keefe, I want to point out, if you run a company like this in a social media thing, $2,500 on DJ gear for if he did end up getting at Coachella, that would have been a huge marketing opportunity. Like, they point this out as like, oh, he spent it on booze. They put booze there. Like, if they put alcohol, it wouldn't have the same effect. They put booze because anytime you think of booze, it's like loser, booze, loser, boozer. It's like alcohol for the girl. It's a marketing thing. There are businesses like this, especially if it's an influencer thing. It's like, yeah, it's a party. They're supposed to do a party, and it's a marketing party. I would love for them to point out all of the money that they spend at these fancy events for these rich elites, where they spend $10 million on fancy liqueurs and have an open bar for, charity for the children. It's like, it's stupid. uh, I bet if they audited, Oprah or any of her friends, they would see a whole lot of craziness. Dude, Oprah flies chicken from Azel's here to Hawaii. Like, oh yeah, super efficient use of money. Dex, go ahead.
I mean, come on. All you got to do is go to South by Southwest, and you will see every company. At least back in the day, it's probably still that big now, but I don't know how much CV killed it. But South by Southwest, these companies spent millions of dollars in marketing and advertising, and tons of gear and DJs and booths and performances. I mean, come on. I mean, just a small chump change on some DJ equipment. That's nothing compared to what all these companies spend at something like South by Southwest or any of these other huge events.
I just hate that it's such a divided mainstream. Rolling Stone though is the worst too. Like I used to read Rolling Stone when I was like 12, 13. Rolling Stone is just like a political kind of ganda piece now. Even if I agreed with the politics, I'd be like, what happened to the music and like, the culture of that? It's just like, it's like MTV, they don't have music videos on it anymore. What the heck happened to that? Now it's 12 hours of ridiculousness and 14 hours of catfish, or, my first, what do they call them? Pageants or something. It's like, what does that have to do with music? I've never understood that. Or Disney Plus or Disney Channel playing these like weird things, like all these weird channels playing stuff that doesn't have anything to do with what the channel's about. All right. Thank you guys, and thank you everybody that tuned in today. Thank you on D Live. Very special thank you to Kiki Gray. Thank you for stopping by. I don't think you missed a show. Johnson, Raphael, thank you. Poco Loco, J Girl, that's me. We got Yobi, Beer Juice. We got Kimbria, thank you so much. Scooby Doo Do Right, thank you. Just Right for You, thank you for following. And thank you, Johnson, for gifting out badges over on D-Live. MC Dirty Work, DFW Jackie, Raphael Souls, and Cookie Licious. Thank you guys for the support over on D-Live. Pacific Coast 1, thank you for subscribing. As always, if you do subscribe during the show, we will shout you out. Thank you so much. And again, thank you, and thank you, Mimi Karstel from South Africa. Beautiful, beautiful places there. And then Carolyn Kisner, Bandy Bear, Soul Sister, Laguna Berry, Meepa 007, Julie Pilkerton, and of course, Be Real Beast. And I'm so sorry, Be Real. I hope you watched the replay. I believe I missed you in the very, very beginning. So thank you, and thank you. All right. And Neil Nelson, K. Parker Fraser, Chief, and everybody else, thank you. If you want to do a quick roll call, if you're still in chat, where are you from? Meet other folks from your state. That's the cool part about this. That's how you end up making friends. And here's the great part about that is when you're new in the chat and you don't know that many people, it can become kind of cliquey. And I just thought about it the other day, and I would love it to if new people came in, if you're part of the Foogle fam and you're here every day, try to welcome in new people. Try to make them feel like they're at home, and give them the same feeling that you had when you came in. Again, I know there's people that have been here for so long that, you only talk to the people you know. And that's what's fun about this show. It's not so much the show, it's more the community and the people you get to talk to and the opinions of everybody. So make sure to make people feel welcome. I really appreciate our mods dropping them in the chat. And then drop where you're from. We'll shout out some names in our shoutro. Dex, thank you so much for your service tonight.
Much love. Great job, brother.
And we're gonna try to get on by 6 tomorrow, so keep that in mind. We're gonna do a slightly earlier show because we're gonna try to do calls tomorrow. So make sure to call in 224-400 Marf tomorrow. We're gonna try to get on by 6 p.m. Pacific, so 9 Eastern. All right, you guys, it's time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. Actually, it's a shoutro.
The Wizard of Oz. Now they're trying to go and play God. Stand up and we have to press pause to making babies in pies. No need for alarm. Bees has their long, long claws stuck into us, but they will never, ever, 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 ever be God. Giving the finger to the Wizard of Oz. Now they're trying to go and play God. Stand up and we have to press pause to making babies in pies.
No need for alarm. Bees have their long, long claws stuck into us, but they will never, ever, 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 ever be God.
Giving the finger to the Wizard of Oz. Now they're trying to go and play God. Stand up and we have to press pause to making babies in pies. No need for alarm. Bees has their long, long claws stuck into us, but they will never, ever, 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 ever be God. Giving the finger to the Wizard of Oz. Now they're trying to go and play God. Stand up and we have to press pause to making babies in pies.
All right, thank you, Shannon L, Randy Man, Dex J. Thank you, Jen X. I walk around in the house seeing, looking out my window, seeing a crescendo. I will play that today. It's kind of like if somebody had like a pop hit. It gets old for me, but it doesn't get old for everybody else.
I got the Carrie Schaefer and the Joe that you know. O-O-L and the O-O-O. Old dude and the Katie cleans a lot. A dingus chub and the Mr. Pie. I said Joe that you know and the dingus chub. King is in, Jesus in my King and Trinity on red or higher ho, a Kermit the Frog here. Captain the Wanda and the W-I-S Jan Danish girl and the Mrs. When I go down but back around now with the Susie cat. With the Susie cat. Susie cat. Susie cat. I killing it, grilling it, oh. Killing it, I'm grilling it. I close up 99. I red homestead. I says night, I guys. 21, Julia Jones, Mahomes, 21, thank you for membership. But they will never, ever, 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 ever be God. Giving the finger to the Wizard of Oz. Now they're trying to go and play God. Stand up and we have to press pause to making babies in pies. No need for alarm. Bees has their long, long claws stuck into us, but they will never, ever, 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 ever be God.
Thank you, Animated Adventures. Thank you, Tristan Green, for joining as members. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I forgot the zombie guy. Sue Wilson in the Mr. Pie. I'm not gonna make the baby in pies if it's up to me. Hills real lights and the love you go. Get love you guys and the Mr. Go. I see the bones in the Michigan lifestyle and then the uniform consent. Hey, with the Danish girl, Cameron Rats and the Mr. Real. Potato Biden and the Bill Bill. See who win the with the wheel. Rio Latchney and the All-Star 1776 and the Pro Ojo. Wizard of G's and the Mr. C. And everybody gonna do it like Justin D. Hey, with the Alice Crawley and the Kevin M.D. 1974. Going with the Antichrist and Nanotech will repair the wound. With the Rochelle Cockley, Derek Corred and Mr. Barkley. Hey, I maybe Charles Barkley. Hey, with the truthful F Biden and the Biden. With the I'm away, are you? Bring it right back. Give it I need some Martinez.